Morning and thanks for tuning in. My name is Colin and you're watching Plod With Me TV, the channel where I take you around bits of London and tell you about their history. And today we are going to take a walk from outside Liverpool Street Station and go down Bishopsgate and down into the city towards Royal Exchange. So we'll start here, Bishopsgate, and wander around to the right. I'll just give a very brief mention about this building. If I just tilt up here, you can see nice big building which was once a hotel, which a lot of the train stations, the main train stations in London had. And obviously, you know, you've got one up at Charing Cross, you've got the famous one at St Pancras, the Harry Potter one. And this was this one, which has now been sort of broken up into various establishments within it, including Hamilton Hall, a Wetherspoons pub, and this, there's a place called, I think it's Amzorge or Amzax. But, yeah, Lady Abercorns. So you can see it's been broken up into lots of different establishments and businesses. Now we're taking a quick diversion off Bishopsgate. Hold on, tilt that up. So yeah, we're taking a quick diversion off. We're just going to do a loop around and then go back on to Bishopsgate. But first of all, I just want to show you a couple of things around here. So this is Liverpool Street proper, as it were. And as you can see, the hotel, as was, is built on the site of what was the first Bethlehem Hospital. It says here that was here from 1247 until 1676. Now, let me just see that. It's sitting very slanty for some reason, and I don't know why. Bear with me, I'm just having a fight with my camera. Yeah, maybe that's slightly better. Alright, let's try and do that. Okay, so as it says, first Bethlehem Hospital. And this is the site that gave rise to the term Bedlam, because from about 1377 it started treating the insane. Now there wasn't that many of them, but they obviously weren't very well looked after. Everything from being kept in chains to solitary confinement. There was even a stocks in there whenever they went in and, you know, were looking around it. And if you were of a mind at that time, you could have come here and paid the warders, you know, a few pence, and you would have got to watch the mad people, you know, as a form of entertainment. And I believe that if you paid them a little bit extra, you might have even been able to run down the ward between them. So, obviously not the most modern way of treating people with mental illness, but this is the original Bedlam Hospital. So basically, it was part of a priory called St Mary Bethlehem, I think it was. And then over time, the name got shortened from Bethlehem to Bedlam, and then Bedlam, and then Bedlam. And then because of the treatment of the insane, it became a general word meaning sort of chaos or, you know, that sort of thing. So that's how we got the term Bedlam. And the hospital, it says 1676, it moved a couple of times, moved down to, I think it was Moorfields, and then down to what is now the War Museum down Lambeth Way, and then it moved out into the countryside. I think Surrey, but don't quote me. Now, other place I was going to mention is across the way here. Just trying not to get run over by taxis. So yeah, you can see here it says the arcade, and it's closed at the minute, and that is because it has undergone a big refurbishment with a view to opening in the autumn of 2025. And it's got a 15-year lease with a company called Box Park, and I have no doubt they will open it up with lots of food and probably pubs, and I'm sure it will be a lot of chain names, and it will be relatively overpriced. In the past, this was an Edwardian arcade. It opened in 1912, and basically it was above what is the Metropolitan line, which apparently initially was steam driven, and then with the advent of electricity, whenever the tubes sort of got updated to use electric, they were able to cover over the space above, and they created this arcade in 1912. And the thing is, until relatively recently, this would have been a place where you could, if you worked up in the city, up in the area here, you could have got your shoes repaired, you could have got your dry cleaning done. If you had annoyed your other half, you could have bought some flowers on the way home. All these sort of traditional little shops. There was an arcade full of them here, which I can remember. I used to like just wandering through it. It had a nice atmosphere. But all those were available, and it's now going to be turned into yet another generic food place with pubs. Maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised, but I'm not holding out much hope. Now, I'm going to continue on round. And as I say, we're just going to do a big bit of a loop, then get back on the Bishopsgate. Alright, I just thought while we're here, because I'm in the main movies, I just thought I'd show you a movie location. For any of you that are into the Mission Impossible movies, the very first one, there was a scene where the team had to hole up in London, and it was a very rainy night, and you see them sort of looking out the curtain, and then the shot cuts to here. And it's above the station here, in those windows, that they are supposedly holed up. And then at some point Tom Cruise takes a nip across, goes down there into the Liverpool Street station, where there was still old-style telephone kiosks. And he gets on the phone and he talks to, I think it was John Voight. And if any of you are wondering where that happens, obviously the telephone kiosks are long gone, because we now live in the mobile phone age. And it was roughly where the cash machines are now. So that's a bit of Mission Impossible for you, but you weren't expecting that in a history tour. Alright, we're going to take a nip up Old Broad Street. going to have a quick look at this. And as the sign says, Victorian Bathhouse, Bishopsgate. And you can't really see into it. But lovely architecture. Now, this, hold on, I'll just tilt up. There we go. So this, as it says, is advertised as a Turkish bathhouse. Over recent years, it's been a number of things. It's a bit of an iceberg, really, architecturally speaking, because although you go in there and it looks very small, it goes down underneath, and there's rooms underneath it. And it was a Turkish bath, 1897, and over the years it has been a bathhouse with various names, including Argyll's. In the 1960s it was called Neville's, not quite so quaint and prosaic as a Turkish bathhouse, but there you go. But there has been a bathhouse here since, I believe it was 1847. But it was just the 1890s that the Turkish angle came about. But more recently, it's been a restaurant, and it's been a sort of place where you maybe do, some of the city firms might do sort of private functions and that sort of thing. But I can't say I've ever been in it myself. But these days, every time I've walked past it, it's looked like this. It's looked closed, so I don't know what's happening with it. I would like to think it's protected and nothing's going to happen to it. But the way they keep redeveloping the area, who knows? As I say, it's been a restaurant recently. It's changed hands several times when I've walked past it. And at one point, it even had a thing downstairs called the Boom Boom Club. So probably best not to ask. But yeah, an oddity just surrounded by all these, glass and steel buildings. But still survives. Now, we're going to walk back up the Bishopsgate now, but first of all, we are going to stop off and have a look at one of the old churches. Now, this is St. Botolph's. Actually, we'll talk about the church hall first. This used to be an infant school here, related to the church, but you can see now it's just like a church hall, sort of place where the cubs and all that sort of thing would come. The church itself has had several incarnations. I think this one dates from about 1729. But this hall, I think, was somewhat later. I think this was early 1800s. And the interesting thing about the hall isn't so much the hall itself, is the statues. Now, these are statues of the sort of dress that school children would have worn in the early 1800s. And the originals are actually inside, and they're painted. These ones are replicas made of a thing called Coade stone, C-O-A-D-E, and it was the invention of a lady called Eleanor Coade. And Coade stone basically was a way of making a mould that looked just like it was a regular statue, but it was a lot cheaper. But a lot of the biggest country houses around the country and in the British Isles still have Coade stone figures, reliefs, all sorts. And you wouldn't know. And the beauty of it is, although it was cheaper than regular stonework, it's very weather resistant. Look at these must be the guts of a couple of 100 years old, and still looking pretty good. But they keep the original statues indoors to protect them. Now, Eleanor Coade was the lady who invented the mixture. At the time, 1770, she invented this stuff. And at the time, it was a bit like the Coca-Cola recipe. It was a secret mixture, and lots of other people had attempted to do these sort of cheaper versions of statues, but none of them had really worked, and certainly didn't have the properties that made it last long the way hers has. And her original factory was where Festival Hall is now, down on the south bank. I've got a couple of pictures of stuff that I've taken from around London. I'll put it in for you so that you can see. But it's very impressive stuff. And you have to say, 1770 for a woman to own her own factory. Not even just that, but she invented the stuff. Back in the 1770s, wasn't exactly common for a woman doing her own business and being an inventor and everything else. So she must have been quite a woman. Surprised there hasn't been a TV drama. But so that is the Coade stone figures for St. Botolph's. Now, as I say, St. Botolph's has had a number of incarnations over the years. They reckon, the church's website itself reckons, that there has been a place of Christian worship here since Roman times. But the first mention it gets in literature was in about 1212, apparently. And St. Botolph, this is St. Botolph's without. And when you see, especially with church, if it says without in London, what it means is it's outside the city walls. So you had the original city, and if you were within, they didn't usually bother saying St. Botolph's within, they would have just said St. Botolph's, but if it was outside the city walls, it would have said St. Botolph's without. And it was a good way, if you had a lot of churches with the same name, which was very true in the city of London, it was a good way of delineating, which one you were talking about as well. So John Keats was baptised here, the poet, if you're into Mr. Keats at all. And as I say, there's been a first mention of a church here in 1212. And this one is getting on for, 300 years? And they believe that this cross here was the first military cross, or military memorial, I should say, to be put up in England as a result of the First World War. Apparently this was put here after the Sea Battle of Jutland. And they reckon it was the first memorial, or First World War memorial, to be put up in England. Now, the other thing about St. Botolph is, in times, hundreds of years ago, it would have made quite a bit of money for the church. And let's be honest about it, that was one of the reasons that the church existed. Raise money, build more churches, spread the faith. And the way they would make money in the St. Botolph's model was, as I say, this one's just outside the city walls. They were traditionally in lots of cities, either just outside the whatever city defences, or just inside, because St. Botolph was the saint of travellers. These days we think of St. Christopher, but in those days St. Botolph was more the main man. And what you would have done is, if you were going up here, like this Bishopsgate used to be called Ermine Street, that was the Roman road to Lincoln, and then further north to York. And if you were going to go travelling outside the city, where there was no police force and crime could happen to you at any time, you would come in here and you would make a donation and you would make a prayer for a safe trip. And then, of course, at the other end, you would go to the St. Botolph's, wherever you were getting to. You would nip in, make a donation, and make a thankful prayer for a safe trip. That you got there okay. So, as a business model, it was pretty damn good. Got you at both ends. So, that's why you'll find a number of St. Botolph's dotted around the country. Not least, there's several in London. Now, speaking of the church, you might notice this Bishop's Mitre literally next door. And the reason that's here is because this marks the spot of where the city walls were. There were 7 gates into the city of London, and one of them was Bishopsgate. And this is why this street, or this road, whatever you want to call it, it's just called Bishopsgate. It doesn't have road or street after it, but this is what it's named after. And the reason why this one was called Bishopsgate, as opposed to something else gate, is because back in the late 600s. The Bishop of London was a guy called Erconwald, and he paid for this gate to be rebuilt after it obviously fell into disrepair or was destroyed. A lot of the gates over the years, you know, be it War of the Roses, be it the Civil War, a lot of the gates needed replacing or repairing at different times. The one at Newgate got replaced a number of times, and the Bishop paid for this one, and as a result of that it became known as the Bishopsgate. And indeed Erconwald was pretty much, you would say, the Bishop of London. He was certainly considered that for many hundreds of years. He was like the saint of London, if you see what I mean. He was the bishop, but he was considered like London's saint. And this is one of the few things that you can remember him by now, because, you know, up until a few hundred years ago, his name would have been synonymous with London as religious terms. Okay, I'm going to try and nip across. I just thought I would show you. I tilt up and show you this monstrosity. This is 100 Bishopsgate. And there is a story behind its origins, which I'm going to come to in a moment. But first of all, before we get to that, let's look at a couple of other places. But I will refer back to this in a moment. This building, with the gurking rising behind it, this is St Ethelburga's church, and again this church's been here for many hundreds of years. I think memory's gone, I think it was 1200s, but I'll put in the exact date. I think it was another one of those ones where it got a mention some hundreds of years ago. But basically, church has been here hundreds of years, okay? It survived the Great Fire, it survived the Blitz. Unfortunately, it didn't survive the Irish. During the time known as the Troubles, unfortunately, my countrymen did something that, you know, nobody should be proud of. They left a big digger lorry here, and it had a ton of fertilizer in it, which they then exploded. Pretty much destroyed that church, destroyed a lot of the buildings around, you know, glass and a lot of these big offices. Hundreds of millions. Apparently Lloyd's came close to going broke, the insurance company. But the damage that was done to the church, and it wasn't insured by all accounts, it did manage to get donations, it managed to get rebuilt. It's not, I don't think it's so much a practicing church anymore because it's been subsumed along with a couple of others, because there's not enough parishioners around to make a lot of these churches viable for every Sunday or open every day of the week. So they got subsumed into the big one of the main ones, St Helen's, just around the corner. But it now calls itself a centre for peace and reconciliation, and it studies basically religious conflict. So you will get people of different faiths come here and hold little conferences, and behind the church there is now a conference centre which is built in the form of a Bedouin tent. So given the origins of its demise at the hands of the Irish, the fact that it's now looking at and holding discussions on conflict due to religion, I think is a very progressive move, and hopefully it will lead to that sort of, or help stop that sort of thing happening in the future. But that is St Ethelburga's. And seeing pictures on their website of the what's it called, the Bedouin tent. It looks very flash, I have to say, it looks very nice. Now, let me just... Now, next we come to this street here. It's called St. Helen's, the street opposite with the big pillars. I'll show you it in a moment. But I'm going to tilt up to the above the building to look at a spire, and it's going to be my probably few chances to channel my inner Frank Drebin and utter the immortal words, "Nice beaver." So if I go up there, I don't know if you can see clearly, but on that spire is a beaver. And you might ask yourself, well, why? Why would there be a beaver on a spire in the city of London? Well, let me just show you the street here. In fact, let's take a nip over. Usually this gate's closed. I'm just going to see if I can nip in and get a quick, closer look. Right. So basically, this building on the left is Hazelwood House, and that is where the Beaver is on top of. And that is because at one time, from 1926 until about 1970, it was the headquarters of the Hudson Bay Company. The Hudson Bay Company was a sort of what you call a financial venture. It was done in 1668, I think it was incorporated. Beaver were almost extinct in France and whatnot around Europe, and they were very valuable, you know, for the waterproof, the fur, all the rest of it. And so an adventurer called, I think it was James Hudson, but don't quote me, but certainly the name Hudson, because that's how you get Hudson Bay, you discovered the bay. And the thing is, if you look at a map of Canada, the bay isn't so much a bay as a small sea. It is vast. And it was a huge chunk of land that was discovered and claimed, and the Hudson Bay Company managed. Now, the charter, or the responsibility for managing the Hudson Bay Company was given to a guy called Prince Rupert, and he had been Charles I's nephew. And if you ever watch the film Cromwell, he's played by Timothy Dalton. See, movie references. But basically, he got banished by Charles I after the fall of Bristol. But when Charles II came back on the throne, and this venture took off, and they discovered this huge land and lots of natural resources they could exploit, he gave the management of the organisation to Rupert until his death. And they had offices initially down Fenchurch Street and Lime Street, and then they moved here, as I say, in 1926. And this was in Hazelwood House, which is now, like, you know, numerous offices and all that sort of thing. Now, I mentioned 100 Bishopsgate. To come back to that, the building at the end is one of the London livery companies. In this case, it is the Leathersellers. So they were one of the main, you know, players in the livery companies. They were number 15, and they owned this land. 1543, this land, it used to be a priory belonging to a monastery at St. Helen's, or a priory at St. Helen's, and it obviously had lots of, you know, other religious buildings attached to it. But no doubt, 1543, just after the dissolution in the late 1530s, the Leathersellers grabbed the land and built their livery company here. And they date from, I think it was 1300s. I think they had formed in the late 1200s, and then they got their charter in the 1300s. Sorry, dates are going out of my head. I had loads of dates to remember, and some of them are going, but I'll put it in the text. But anyway, they have been here ever since 1543, when they grabbed this land and built their first livery company. They have been here ever since, and much like a lot of the other livery companies that were damaged by, you know, sort of the Great Fire or the Blitz or just general time, old age, they've had to replace the buildings. And when the big bomb went off just out there, this building was also severely damaged. And they were, obviously going to have to pay a fortune to repair it all. And they thought, well, how can we do this? And the thing is, they own the freehold of the land that all this and the land nearby is built on, or is on. And they then turned around to the developers and they gave them the okay to build 100 Bishopsgate, big skyscraper I showed you. And with the proceeds of that, they were able to rebuild the hall and do all the repairs that were needed. And I'm sure a couple of extra mince pies and dinners were had as well. So so this is Leathersellers Hall, number 15 in the Great Guilds. I'll see if I can just get a bit closer for you, see if this guy's okay. So as you can see, this will be the Livery company's logo, or livery as it were. So, like many places, they don't let you take film, which is weird. When with a small, handheld camera like my iPhone, I could take as much film as I like without him realising. But he's only doing his job. But I do find it weird in this age that you can take pictures, but you can't take moving images. But here we go. We're going to come a bit further down. Right. Alright, bear with me one moment while I refresh my memory. Yeah, so this, I was saying about how St Helen's Priory owned that land and then the Leathersellers bought it off them. Well, obviously that's just next door to the left there. But this is St Helen's Church. And obviously closed at the minute. But the reason they had the Priory, at one point this church was split in two. Like internally, because you had the church, first one half of the church was for the local parishioners, and they had a division down the middle, and the other half was for nuns, for the priory. So you could hold services to both, but without them actually seeing each other. And it was literally a big screen at one time down the centre of the church. But as I say, the priory held the land, which the Leathersellers later bought. So here we go. This ancient church dates from the 12th century. Many alterations have been made, succeeding generations. Fine twin nave church with the Jacobean pulpit from which many famous men have proclaimed the good news of Jesus Christ to the people of London. Restored and reordered in 1995 following extensive damage from terrorist bombs in 92 and 93. So yeah, this would have got hit twice, because not the Gherkin building is actually calls it Mary Axe, if memory serves. That's the actual name of it. And there was a bomb at St Mary Axe prior to the one that blew up St Ethelburga's. So this would have got hit twice. And this was the parish church in the 1590s. This was the parish church of a certain William Shakespeare. So he was known to worshipped here. And the outside walls are pretty much as were. So he would probably recognise it if he came. And there's an unusual little feature just round the corner here. Now, you often, well, if you're like me and you read articles about London history, you often hear about how there are bollards like these ones. You see, we've got City of London bollards there with the black and red and white, and we've got these just sort of functional bollards, and then you've got this one, which is a bit more historical, because this is actually a cannon that's been put in upside down to form a bollard. Now, I have no doubt this comes from probably Napoleonic times. There were a number of places that captured French cannon were used and melted down or used like this around London. Like the bronze plaques at the bottom of Trafalgar Square. There were sculptures in Horseguards Parade, all from captured French cannon. And this one is without doubt one of those. Now, I was going to mention a couple of famous people, well, famous to me, people who are buried in this church. So one of them is Thomas Gresham, who in his day was like the Bill Gates of London, the most richest man in London, and he's buried here. And also, let's see, Robert Hooke, and it says there, Robert Hooke, eminent scientist, first led the rest here. Now, Robert Hooke is someone I intend to do a video on at some point. I've sort of, in my readings, I've come across him every now and again, but he's the reason why you have, amongst other things, the dome at St Paul's Cathedral. Because when Christopher Wren was trying to build St Paul's, he wanted to have the big dome, but it was too heavy. And it was Robert Hooke that was doing research into chain theory and the tension and how you could sort of things would hold together that enabled Wren to then build the dome. And he's, other stuff that he invented or, built and theorized on. But apparently there was a big spat between him and Isaac Newton, and Isaac Newton basically tried to get his name removed from scientific history, from what I've read. So I want to look into that more, and I want to do a video just about what Robert Hooke did around London at some point. But there is a sign saying that he's buried here. Now, we are going to go across the road and we are going to go down Threadneedle Street. I'll probably put some music on, but before I do, one last thing I forgot to mention about the Hudson Bay Company. At one point, it owned more land than any other country in the world. It owned about half of Canada and parts of what are now Northwest America. It was huge and vastly rich. And I don't know what the natives had to say about it, but I'm sure they weren't asked. So anyway, let's go down to Threadneedle Street, play a bit of music. Hi, this building here is the Merchant Tailors Guild. So got the big flag, even tells you that. But like a lot of the guild places, a lot of the livery companies, very discreet from the outside, you wouldn't know what was in there. But again, one of the ancient livery companies, and this one got its charter in 1327, and it's been on this location, numerous incarnations of building, but it's been on this location since 1347. So you had the Leathersellers, 1543, same location, this one 1347. And it does give you the opinion, like, you know, with the organisations like the livery companies, the City of London, and no doubt there's countless other ones, all just operating continuously. They're a bit like Doctor Who or the Highlander. London, the skyscrapers, various buildings, they go up, they come down, things replace them, but underneath it all, the livery companies, the City of London Corporation, and numerous other things all just continue on. And the thing is, most people don't even know they're there. They're just like a constant. And as I say, this was again one of the big livery companies, and it has an interesting story behind its ranking. Now, I don't know the exact origins of how it came about, but it makes it sound like the Middle East Peace Accords. They had an ongoing dispute with the Skinners Livery Company as to who was the more important or more, you know, took precedence in the order. And I think it was because of a lot of arguments, and then 1484 a decision was made that they obviously agreed to. Basically, when it came to things like the Lord Mayor's Parade and whatever else goodies or prestige come with being whatever rank you are, they would alternate each year. So one year one of them would be number 6, the other year the other one would be number 7, and then it would switch over the following year every Easter. And it is said that this is the origins of these saying to be at 6s and 7s. So it's their dispute with the Skinners as to who was, you know, the more prestigious that led to this rather odd agreement. But it's lasted for 1484 to 2024. So it's good 550 years and or thereabouts, 60 years and counting. No, 40, 540. My mental math is going to hell. Right. Now, the origins of Threadneedle Street itself are a bit lost in the mist of time to a certain extent. There's been several theories. One of them is that there was an establishment that sort of was well known and obviously like a focal point that everybody knew, called the Three Needles, which eventually just sort of morphed into Threadneedle. But there doesn't seem to be a definitive answer. I obviously the big building on the right with the flag on it is the Bank of England, but we'll talk about that another time. But it's a suitably imposing structure. But I thought instead we'd talk about this guy, George Peabody. He was born in Massachusetts. Oh, actually, it actually tells you all about him here. So he was born 1795, and I know he moved over here to do work. He was like an importer, exporter, and he started coming over to London from 1727, and then he settled here in 1737, and was an investment banker, and did very, very well for himself. And the reason why he has a statue is because in 1862 he basically made a bequest to the poor of London, and he gave £150,000, which was quite a sum in those times, to the poor of London, that there might be sort of low rent accommodation built for people who couldn't afford to live. And he made subsequent bequests, including in his will, and in total it came to about £500,000, which in the 1860s, because he died in 1869, is no small amount of money. So this statue was made for him to thank him for doing this good work as an American in London. He also did the same in America, I should say, but obviously he's remembered over here for what he did over here. But this statue is unusual in two ways. First of all, it's one of the few, if not the only statue, certainly of the old type, where the subject is sitting down. And apparently this is how he sort of remembered when he met people. And the other thing is, it's the first statue of an American to be unveiled in London. So, I suppose you could say in many ways the boy did good. So this was unveiled by the future Edward VII here back in the 1860s, 69. I think it was the year he died. But there is a picture which I'll put in. And then what we're going to try and do is get into the Royal Exchange, which is this lovely big building. Now we may get told, like we did at the Leathersellers, that there's no cameras allowed, in which case you might have to settle for some pictures, but we'll see how we do. Alright. I may as well just mention this. So Paul Julius Reuter, this is where Reuters, the news people, this is where it all began. So just behind him here, number 1 Royal Exchange was the origins. It says on the site on the 14th of October 1851. So this is where Reuters began. It's still going strong. And the Royal Exchange looks like it's closed. That's a pity. I'll see if I can find some photos for you. I might have some from the time before. But basically the Royal Exchange was the brainchild of Thomas Gresham. And as I said before, Thomas Gresham, richest man in London. They're all obviously, you could mention similarly rich people these days, but since they're always going about conspiracy theories, the name's a bit like Voldemort and best left unsaid. But Thomas Gresham did a lot of good works. He was a bit of a rogue, how he made his money. He wasn't exactly completely ethical about how he made his money, but he did do a lot of good works for London. Not least, there's a free online university, like a free place you can go and see classes in person, but it's now online, called St Bernard's College. But he also was the brainchild behind this. So the Royal Exchange was a place where businessmen could come and barter and do trades. Nor before they would have done it in shops or out in the street. But he had been to Holland, I think it was, and that gave him the inspiration because there was an exchange building there. He came back and raised the money to build the first one. I think this is the third, if memory serves. He came back in the 1500s, got the first one built, and I think it was 1575 Queen Elizabeth came to visit it and gave it the seal of approval, and then it became the Royal Exchange. And so it has been ever since, even though it's been rebuilt several times. And these days, the only sort of trading that's done in there is for high-end sort of fashion and restaurants and that sort of thing, because all the traders of various other goods all moved to other offices over time. But it's very swanky. It's the sort of place you go in. Lovely interior. Last time I was in, somebody was playing the piano, doing the mood music and all the rest of it. But it is lovely. And obviously where the beautiful people hang out, which is why I tend to frequent there. So, as I say, it's obviously closed at the minute. So I'll see if I can get you some pictures, which is a pity. So what we'll do is we'll walk around the front of the Royal Exchange and I'll show you another spire, because it's Thomas Gresham Spire, and since there's several of them dotted around London, you'll know if you ever see this particular spire what it relates to and why it's there. You know, at some point I might just do a video about spires. Right, that's a bit better, isn't it? Yeah, as I was saying, at some point I might just do a video about spires, because there's unusual ones dotted all around London and they've got stories behind them about the people or the companies that created them. So, or that, should I say, that they represent. So, a bunch of people obviously looking to rob the Bank of England. I don't think they're going to have much luck. How far back do I have to get to be able to see the spire?
That says Royal Exchange.
Now this is annoying. I know it's there. It's just a case of being able to see the damn thing. Come on, let's see how far back. No. Okay, so if you look to the left of the flag, up against that building, the glass building behind it, you should be able to see, although it might be a bit small, I'll maybe try and take a photograph and do a close-up. There is a spire there with a grasshopper on it, and that is the symbol of Thomas Gresham. The legend has it that a foundling was found, the attention was drawn to it by the chirping of a grasshopper, and that drew somebody over to the foundling, and that foundling became the sort of the first of the Gresham clan, as it were, and led to their success and wealth. So for any buildings that Thomas Gresham built, there's a grasshopper spire above them. Alright, so there you go. There's obviously something going on at the Royal Exchange with all the red and white banners and whatnot wrapped all around the pillars. So that's obviously what they're getting prepared for and why it's closed off, which is a pity. But like I say, I'll see if I can find you some pictures, or I might even have some footage from a previous visit, but I'll see if I can put it in there. But otherwise, hope you enjoyed this walk. I'm hoping I wasn't slanty the whole time, because my equipment is obviously starting to go doolally. But yes, hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you have any comments or any questions, and hopefully I will see you on the next one. Now there should be appeared somewhere either side of me, there should be a link to another one of my walks if you're that way inclined, and if you want to subscribe, that would be most appreciated. Alright, so hopefully I'll see you at the next one, but for now, that's me, Colin at Coade with Me TV, saying thanks very much for watching if you got this far. Thank you, bye.